Right, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Would you believe it's been about 2 years since I first did that video up here where I literally just used a lab box for the first time and developed a roll of 120 film. And since then I've successfully developed about 33 black and white films in this lab box. And for me it still meets my needs because obviously I only really develop 1 or 2 films a month, and sometimes I'll go several months without developing any films. So for me, 1 film at a time, lab box, packed away in a shelf in the corner of this room when I'm not using it, and it takes up very minimal amount of space. So for me, the lab box still meets my needs completely. I am intending to do colour film at some point, but it takes a little bit more effort. I feel like the chemicals that I use for black and white, so if I reach over here, I mainly use this stuff here, Kodak's HC110, and I have got a little bit of leakage somewhere. Ooh. Be careful, I guess it's just probably leaked down the bottle when I've been using it. But yeah, so I mainly use HC110 Kodak for my monochrome developing needs, and that bottle has lasted probably a good year or so now, and I feel that it's going to last forever long that it will last. And I've also got as well a small little bottle of Rodinal that I use when I want kind of an extra punch or just to try a different developer. And those chemicals, they seem to have an everlasting shelf life, whereas I know when I start developing colour film, the chemicals for colour, when they've been mixed up ready for use, and that's the good thing with the monochrome stuff, you can just literally mix up a one-shot mix of the stuff and then use it and then ditch it, and then the concentrate just stays in the bottle until I next need it. But I think with colour chemicals, you generally need to mix up the whole of the chemicals into a working batch, and then that will only last for a few months. So it seems that it's going to be a lot more expensive to develop colour film, and it probably won't suit my 1 to 2 film kind of development frequency at the moment. So I'll probably have to hit colour hard at some point and go out, shoot loads of colour, and then develop it in order to make it less expensive way of doing it, I guess. Another aspect of colour development that's going to be difficult is the temperature control. As with monochrome development, 20 degrees is all you really need to get really good results, whereas colour, temperature control is a lot more critical to the development, and the temperature needs to be a lot higher. So whereas at the moment I get away from using just tap water, and then if I need to raise it up a couple of degrees or lower it a couple of degrees, I'll just put in either some ice to lower the temperature, or I'll put in some hot water just to bring the temperature of the chemicals up to that 20 degrees. But obviously when I move to colour, I think you get up to 30 degrees C. So I have already bought like a sous vide wand which will help with that, but I just need to be more prepared and ready to commit myself to develop in colour. And I've still got some monochrome film in the moment, so I think I'll just run down my monochrome stocks before I attempt to develop colour film in the lab box here. So I've had 2 films which didn't go correctly to plan, and that wasn't the lab box's fault at all. For whatever reason, the chemicals were mixed wrong, so that had obviously an effect, but I think I managed to salvage those negatives, thankfully. But the other film that didn't go quite so well was when I was developing some 120 film from my old number 2 Kodak Brownie, which is about 105 years old. So I was obviously really looking forward to seeing what the prints would look like. And I forgot to put, if I open up the lab box, I forgot to put this guide in to the box like so. So when the film was rolling onto the kind of the cartridge here, it was overlapping itself. And even though it did develop, there was some negatives that just didn't develop right. And as I'm talking here, I'll just put a few of those examples up where that went wrong. But for the other 31 films, the lab box has done its job. And as long as you follow the process, the same process that I pretty much used on that first roll of film, then it generally does what it needs to do. So out of those 33 rolls of film I've done about 6 of them were expired film. And funny enough, the next roll of film that I've got to develop is still in the camera here. It's some Ilford Delta 100, and it expired according to the packet here back in March 2008. So this stuff is 13 years old, and I did notice when I put it into the camera that the beginning of the negative, it already had kind of started to degrade. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, the rest of the film should look okay. And I'll take that, I might as well, while I'm talking to you, I might as well just take that roll of film out of this camera because it's finished with, and then I'll need to use one of these here, an Ilford kind of negative retriever thing to get the leader out of the cartridge 35mm film so I can then develop it in the lab box. Obviously I still use the massive dev chart as well to work out all my timings, and I have used that as well to help me push and pull film on a number of occasions. So I think it's probably been one of my most successful videos, my original lab box video, and I've hopefully answered a lot of questions that people have asked. Yeah, so what I'll just do as well is, before I open this up and get the chemicals ready to do another development here today, is I'll just put up a montage of my favourite images that I've captured in these 33 rolls of film that I've developed in the lab box thus far. Even though these days I prefer using more mechanical cameras, or more cameras where you have to use the aperture and shutter speed selections to expose for a scene, there is still value in being able to pick up a point and shoot camera like this and just go out and shoot when you're potentially in scenarios where it's great just to kind of open up the camera, compose a shot, fire it off, and then carry on and move on to the next one. So yeah, so that's what I did here, and so let's go and get this film out. So like I said, so I need to now use a tool like this to get the leader of this cartridge out ready for development. And you can probably see here actually the cartridge itself has got a bit of rust on the outside, just showing you that this is probably 13-14 years expired. Doesn't always work first time. It's kind of just practice, really, try and error. So roll it on. Do like a click, then you push that up, and then in theory you do that in that fast time. And I'll just put it up now. You can see that there's some marks on this film here, hopefully. So yeah, I'm not sure how well this is going to develop, but it's there ready to be developed anyway. Yeah, so just summarising again, I still use like I said, I still use mainly Kodak's HC110 to develop my film. And what I know on occasion when I'm using lower ISO film that I want to put a bit more grain and contrast into that development, I still use Ilford's Ilford stop to stop the development process once that's complete. And then I currently use Ilford's rapid fixer, which does the job, but it does have a bit of an odor to it. So my next Ilford fixer, when I finish with that batch, I'll probably try an odorless version instead, because that's probably the smelliest part of the whole development, and I have to make sure I do it next to a window or open the window just to keep that space where I'm developing ventilated. The one thing I probably have done differently since starting down this road of using the lab box, and I still, like I said, I still follow the process every time, just because it's so easy just to miss something, and this kind of helps keep me following the process correctly. But originally in the instructions here, it recommended a washing time. Let me get to the page. Yeah, so it recommends a washing time of about 10 minutes and constantly agitating. So obviously you've developed your film, you take the lid off, you check that the film has been fixed correctly so it's no longer looking too purple, and then you detach the module here. So you just got this compartment, take out the guide, and then I used that underneath a tab to do the rinsing. So you're supposed to basically then do it for about 10 minutes under a tap of about 20 degrees C water, just so you don't shock the film. And yeah, that was the longest part of the development. Like when I'm developing Ilford's HP5 Plus, that's generally about a 5-minute development time, a minute stopping, and then 5 minutes of fixing. And then to do another 10 minutes of washing, and then a further 30 seconds of a final rinse using like Kodak's PhotoFlow, just to help with the drying process to eliminate or reduce the chance of streaks forming on the film. It just took forever. So I did do a bit of research and found something called the Ilford wash method, which people generally use with the Patterson tanks. That's generally a number of rotations and then rinses and then rotations. So what I try to do, and I've kind of come to a point now where I'm happy that it's good enough for my needs, is basically I've tailored that wash method to the lab box. So what I tend to do is I'll just hold on to this a minute because this is noisy. So the film's ready for washing. I generally rinse, fill it up a couple times, just rinse it. So I do about 25 times of the handle, empty the water, rinse it again. Then I do about 50 agitations, rinse it, then 100 revolutions, rinse it, then back down to 50, rinse, back down to 25, rinse, and then do the photo flow. And that takes about 3.5, 4 minutes, depending on how fast I just take 4. And that seems to, from about 10 or 12 films I've done using that method now, that seems to be sufficient, I find. So that has dramatically lessened the time I find that I need for washing the film at the end of the development process. Right, so that's about as much as I probably want to cover in this update. What I'll do now as well is I'll just develop this film that I've taken out today. I'll mix up all my chemicals and I'll just leave you with some of my favourite images from this roll of film. But as always, I really do appreciate any comments or questions that you may have. So please feel free to put them in the comments below and I will try and answer everyone's questions. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.